Los Angeles, California. February 14th, 1983. Skid Row. The air inside the warehouse was thick enough to choke on. It smelled of stale cigarettes, nervous sweat, and the metallic tang of impending violence. This wasn't a Hollywood soundstage with catered buffets and air conditioning. This was the real Los Angeles underground, a place where the police hesitated to patrol after dark. And standing in the shadows of a support beam was Marcus, the Razor King. Marcus wasn't a dancer. He wasn't an extra. He was a lieutenant of one of the most feared sets in South Central, and he was angry. He had been watching production crews set up their lights and cameras for 3 hours with a look of pure disgust on his face. To him, this whole production was an insult. A soft, high-voiced pop singer wanted to dress up in red leather and pretend to be tough. It was a mockery of the life Marcus lived every single day. Marcus had buried 3 friends in the last year alone. He had scars on his chest and a warrant out for his arrest in 2 counties. And now, this Michael Jackson character thought he could just bust in some real gang members, throw them a few $100s, and use their pain for entertainment? Marcus gripped the handle of the switchblade in his jacket pocket. He had made a promise to his crew. He wasn't just here to watch. He was here to teach the king of pop a lesson about reality. He was going to shut this production down. The tension in the room was already critical. The production team had done something incredibly risky. To make the video for Beat It feel authentic, they had invited members from rival gangs, specifically the Crips and the Bloods, to be the extras. There were about 80 hardcore street soldiers in the room, separated only by a thin line of nervous security guards and a craft services table. You could feel the hatred radiating across the room. One wrong look, one accidental bump, and the warehouse would turn into a slaughterhouse. The director, Bob Giraldi, looked terrified. The police liaison had already threatened to pull the permit twice. But the cameras were rolling, and everyone was waiting for the star. Marcus watched the door. He had a plan. When Jackson came out, Marcus was going to rush him. Not to kill him. That would bring too much heat, but to scare him so bad he'd never come back to these streets. He wanted to see the fear in the pop star's eyes. He wanted to strip away the fame and the money and show the world that Michael Jackson was weak. At 9 p.m., the side door opened. The warehouse went silent. Michael Jackson walked in. He was smaller than Marcus expected. Thinner. He was wearing that iconic red leather jacket with the zippers, his black hair falling in curls over his eyes. He didn't have a massive entourage surrounding him. He just walked in, looking at the floor, almost shy. Marcus scoffed. This was the man the world worshipped? He looked like a stiff breeze could knock him over. Marcus signaled to his 2 lieutenants. This was going to be easier than he thought. Michael walked to the center of the floor. He looked up, and for the first time, he saw the crowd. He saw the blue bandanas on the left. He saw the red colors on the right. He saw 80 men who were used to solving problems with fists and guns. Most celebrities would have frozen. Most people would have retreated to the safety of their trailer. But Michael didn't flinch. He just stood there, observing, his dark eyes scanning the room with a curiosity that unsettled Marcus. It was time. Marcus stepped out from the shadows. He pushed past the production assistant and walked straight onto the main floor. The room went deadly quiet. Everyone knew who Marcus was. Even the rival gang members stiffened. Marcus walked right up to Michael, stopping just 2 feet away. He towered over the singer. Marcus pulled his jacket back just enough to reveal the handle of his knife, not drawing it, but letting the threat be seen. "You don't belong here, tourist," Marcus spat, his voice echoing in the silent warehouse. "You think this is a game? You think you can just buy our lives and put them in a song?" Security guards started to rush in, but Michael raised a hand, stopping them. He didn't step back. He didn't look at the knife. He looked directly up into Marcus's eyes. And what happened next was something Marcus had never seen in his life. Michael didn't look at him with fear. He didn't look at him with judgment. He looked at him with intense, piercing interest. "I'm not here to play a game," Michael said. His voice was soft, but it carried a strange weight. "I'm here because I want to show the world what you have inside you." Marcus laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "You don't know nothing about what I got inside. You think you're tough because you can dance. I think you're tough Michael said calmly. "But I think you're tired." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Tired? He was a warrior. He was a king. But deep down, under the armor he wore every day, under the anger that fueled him, God, he was so tired. Tired of watching his back. Tired of the funerals. Tired of the anger that ate a hole in his stomach every night. "Don't psychoanalyze me, little man," Marcus growled, stepping closer. "I'm here to show you what real fighting looks like." "Show me," Michael said. Marcus blinked. "What?" "Show me," Michael repeated. "But not with that." He pointed the knife in Marcus's pocket. "Anyone can use that. That's easy. Show me your anger. Show me your fire. But put it into the movement." Michael spun around. He snapped his fingers, and the beat for "Beat It" started playing over the massive playback speakers. The heavy guitar riff, played by Eddie Van Halen, tore through the air. The bass kicked in. "You want to fight me?" Michael challenged, his voice suddenly louder, sharper. "Fight me then, right here." Michael launched into movement. It wasn't just dancing. It was aggressive. It was sharp. He kicked, he spun. He snapped his body with precision that was terrifying. He was channeling pure aggression, but he was controlling it perfectly. He moved toward Marcus, not attacking him, but challenging him. Marcus stood there, confused. The adrenaline was pumping through his veins, screaming for release. He wanted to hit something. He wanted to hurt something. But Michael was moving so fast, with such intensity, that Marcus found himself caught in the rhythm. "Come on." Michael shouted over the music. "Let it out." Marcus didn't know how to dance like Michael Jackson, but he knew how to move in a fight. He stepped forward, mimicking a punch, turning it into a lunge. Michael dodged, spun, and incorporated the dodge into his choreography. It was a conversation. A violent, kinetic conversation without a single blow being landed. The other gang members were watching, mesmerized. They had never seen anyone stand up to Marcus like this. And they had never seen Marcus look free. For the next 3 minutes, the warehouse ceased to be a standoff. It became a battleground of energy. Marcus, a man who had spent his life restricting his emotions, hiding his fear behind violence, let it all go. He threw his body around. He stomped. He glared. He poured every ounce of his hatred and his pain into the movement. And every time he did, Michael met him, matched him, and turned that ugly energy into something beautiful. By the time the song ended, Marcus was gasping for air. Sweat was pouring down his face. His heart was hammering against his ribs. But for the first time in years, it wasn't hammering with anxiety. It was the good kind of exhaustion. The kind you get when you've emptied yourself of poison. The music faded. The room was silent again. But the tension, that heavy, suffocating threat of violence, was gone. It had been burned away by the dance. Marcus looked at Michael. The pop star was also breathing hard, a sheen of sweat on his forehead. Michael smiled. It wasn't the polite, media-trained smile he saw on TV. It was a genuine, gritty grin of respect. "You have a lot of power, Marcus," Michael said quietly. "Imagine if you used it to create instead of destroy." Marcus looked down at his hands. They were shaking. He reached into his pocket. He felt the cold steel of the switchblade. He thought about what he had come here to do. He thought about the reputation he had to maintain. Then he looked at the 80 men in the room, his enemies and his brothers, who were all watching him. Slowly, Marcus took his hand out of his pocket. It was empty. He left the knife there. "You're crazy," Marcus said, but there was no venom in his voice anymore. "Maybe," Michael laughed. "But look." Michael pointed to the room. The Crips and the Bloods weren't staring each other down anymore. They were talking. Some were trying to mimic the moves Michael had just done. They were laughing at each other's attempts. The barrier had broken. For this one night, in this one warehouse, they weren't soldiers in a war. They were just young men making a music video. Marcus stayed for the rest of the shoot. He didn't just stay. He worked. He helped organize the extras. He kept the peace. When a dispute flared up near the catering truck, Marcus was there instantly, not to escalate it, but to shut it down. "Not tonight," he told his own crew member. Tonight, we're doing something else. The video for Beat It went on to become one of the most famous pieces of film in history. It was praised for its choreography, its style, and its message of nonviolence. But what the cameras didn't capture was the transformation of the man standing just off-screen. The encounter changed Marcus. It didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't a fairy tale. He didn't suddenly become a saint, but the seed had been planted. Michael had shown him that there was another way to be powerful. He had shown him that you could fight without bleeding. 2 months later, Marcus was arrested for an old charge. He spent 3 years in prison. But while he was inside, he didn't join the prison gangs. He didn't run the yard. He spent his time in the library, and he spent his time writing. He wrote about the streets. He wrote about the pain. And he wrote about the night a pop star looked a killer in the eye and invited him to dance. When Marcus got out, he didn't go back to the set. He went to a community center in Watts. He started a program for at-risk youth. He didn't teach them how to shoot. He taught them how to move. He taught them that anger is just energy, and energy can be redirected. Years later, in an interview for a small documentary about the LA street scene, an older Marcus, now gray-haired and walking with a cane, spoke about that night. People think Michael Jackson was soft, Marcus said, looking directly into the camera. They see the glitter and the gloves. But let me tell you something. That man had more heart than any gangster I ever met. I walked in there with a knife to cut him down. He walked in there with nothing but a song and lifted us all up. He didn't just make a video that night. He saved my life. And I know for a fact he saved a dozen others, because we didn't kill each other in that parking lot. We went home humming that melody. Michael Jackson never spoke publicly about the confrontation with Marcus. To him, it wasn't a PR story. It was just a moment of connection. But the lyrics of the song he sang that night carry the weight of that truth. It doesn't matter who's wrong or right, just beat it. Michael understood something that politicians and police chiefs often missed. He understood that violence usually comes from a place of not being heard, of not being seen. On that night in 1983, he saw Marcus. He saw the pain behind the tough exterior, and he offered a way out. The legacy of that night lives on, not just in the billions of views on YouTube or the platinum records. It lives on in the kids who went through Marcus's program. It lives on in the truths that held for those few hours on Skid Row. It lives on in the simple, profound idea that art can disarm hate. So the next time you watch the Beat It video, look closely at the faces of the gang members in the background. Look at the intensity in their eyes. That isn't acting. That is the real tension of the street being transmuted moment by moment into something positive. And remember the story of Marcus King, the man who went to war against Michael Jackson and lost the only battle that mattered, the battle for his own bitterness. Michael Jackson is gone now, but stories like this remind us why he was more than just an entertainer. He was a force of nature. He was a mirror that showed us our best selves, even when we were at our worst. He was the king of pop, yes, but on that smoky night in Los Angeles, he was the king of peace. If the story of transformation and the power of music moved you, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are digging deep into the archives to find the stories that history books overlooked, the moments where the music stopped and the real magic began. Hit that like button if you believe that creativity can conquer violence. And tell us in the comments, has music ever helped you through a dark time? We want to hear your story. Because just like Marcus found out in that warehouse, no matter how far down you are, you can always choose to get up. You can always choose to beat it.